Hello, it's Brendan Wissinger again, and today we're going to be talking about climate justice and policies related to climate justice. So, first things we got to realize is that climate change is not just a set of policies. Solving climate change is not going to be a set of technologies and just a set of policies. Climate change is how policy should be, is more how all policies should be in place. We should keep climate change in mind when we put in place all policies. Because all policies, all policies are climate policies. Any policy that brings down emissions, causes more resilience, is a climate policy. And that can be almost anything. Let me show you. So, so that's what I'm doing. Part 2 of this is part 2 of climate policy episode. This is another episode. So what do we have to do this? This is coming from mostly Inslee and Bernie's plans. Mostly Inslee. So I think we left off at access to moon markets for small, women, and minority-owned businesses. So expanding green federal procurement from small business and ensuring federal procurement contracts priorities women and minority-owned businesses, providing direct and federal engagement and education of contractors, especially disadvantaged communities, especially in light of fast-changing and aggressive new federal standards to be understood and implemented. So we need to implement new federal standards, and we need to prioritize women and minority-owned businesses in federal green procurement, which is going to be very important to solve climate change. Strengthening federal procurement standards for local hiring, utilization of workers, women, minority, and veteran-owned businesses. So veteran-owned businesses, women, minorities, and domestic manufacturing can steer trillions of dollars when required for climate reconstruction towards quality job creation and local empowerment. So that's another point. Also promoting community benefit agreements and project labor agreements, which codify labor standards of wage, benefits, and everything else. Just try to stop competition for driving down wages and seeing how low we can get it done. That's another thing. And then we want to build a more just world to prepare for these climate challenges. So first things first. Let's talk about America's second or first largest issue, hopefully second. Universal health care. So universal health care. Well, let's look at how many countries have universal health care. Excuse me while I plug in my laptop. Literally every other Western country has universal health care of some type. Literally everyone. Our healthcare system in the U.S. is ridiculously messed up. If COVID-19 doesn't teach you that, I don't know what will, but I'm going to explain this for you. Our healthcare system is about 25% of our GDP. Most Western countries spend way less than that. Way less. Why? Because our healthcare system is so messed up because of high prices and wasteful systems and everything else. We need to just completely scrap our system and get rid of it. I mean, and that's including, and I'm talking about other countries like Norway, Finland, Sweden, England, where their healthcare system is completely government funded. It's like Medicare for all, what Bernie is saying. So Bernie's plan would be cheaper than what we're currently paying for. We're currently paying for more than universal health care, but not getting that. That's a big problem right there. We need to redo that. But I don't think the rich should be able. I think there should be a point for private health care. I think we should make it that mandatory that we should have an individual mandate saying everyone needs health care, and then we should expand Medicare for all to 300% of the poverty line for all states. That's the current problem, that there isn't enough states backing it. And it's not just Medicare. So we need Medicare for all in that sense. And then, so Medicare for all to 300% of the poverty line for everywhere. And so, yeah, for Medicare for all to, and I think that will help solve that part of the problem. I also think we need to raise, I'm a twin brother. My brother died at birth, and I understand from malpractice, and I think that we really need to update our standards and have better standards of healthcare standards in the U.S. It's terrible. That's another thing we need to do. Another thing is our pharmaceutical prices are ridiculous. We need to stop these, what are they called again? I'm skipping the, kickbacks. We need to make them illegal and put more punishment on them, investigate them more thoroughly. We need to make prices, we need to make the system we have a Medicare fee schedule that says maximum prices for, medications, and we need to expand that throughout the entire healthcare system. We need to expand that throughout the entire healthcare system and make it so we need to expand that throughout the entire healthcare system and put maximum prices and lower those prices as well. And maybe even have ones that compare by country, and yeah, comparative with country of like Western countries to get the correct price. So yeah. So, okay, here's another thing. This is going to be something that's a little controversial. Construction, engineering, planning, and policies. So this is not necessarily just climate justice. This is infrastructure in general. But I'm going to go through it. I put it in here. I don't know why. But, so, for us to be able to build out all the renewable energy, all the transportation the transportation infrastructure, and all the infrastructure we need to build with climate change, there's some things that are going to get in the NEPA way. In the way. NEPA is one of them. National Environmental Policy Act. You're like, wait a minute, that's an environmental law. Yeah, it is, but these environmental reviews take years, and they can set back a project by 6 years or more. That's time we don't have. Another problem is we got other project requirements. We need to streamline all of these, make these limited time involved with office and paperwork with these projects. Limit the and also we need to create, and also our system for funding infrastructure projects is messed up because we just create, okay, here's money, go fix the project, and the company says, well, waste the money because they're not, they still have the project, they're not gonna, there's no competition there, and then they say, oh, I need more money, so I'm like, okay, we'll give you more money, and then they continue the process. We need to set up aside a fund for each project, and the profit and everything in the money all of the money will come from that fund for the entire project. Any money left will be given to the corporation. If they do not, if they use all of that stuff in overtime, well, oh well, you're not getting anything. So, yeah, we need to create a system like that instead of this rolling system that makes no sense. And we need to redoing funding so it's it's oriented towards maintenance of projects rather than the building of infrastructure, because we have a system now that we just build and build and build and build and build, but we don't ever maintain, and that's a problem. So, more justice assistance systems. This includes a robust social security system. And I'm not saying we should, oh, wait a minute, go back. I'm not saying we should get rid of NEPA. I'm not saying we should get rid of NEPA. I'm saying we should say climate projects are exempt from it. a more just assistance system. More includes a robust social security system. I think this is going to be a subunit, or a little, not, this is going to be something else I have to talk about just on this subject alone, assistance system. I didn't put much into here, but I guess I will later. I didn't put much in here, but, includes a robust social security system. We have to fix the social security gap. We have to fix, all the problems. There's some problems with the social security system we have to fix. Mainly the social security gap is the big thing we gotta fix. A homeless aid system that allows them to get, if we need to build homeless communities that have tiny houses or whatever, allow them to get an apartment or something, get a job, have addiction services, and get paid for that so they can save up money to have a house or whatever. We need to do that type of thing. Reform the system so different welfare programs work with each other and get a person off their feet, not against each other, because we have welfare programs that might stop a person from pursuing more education to do something else, have problems in that regard, and we need to fix that. So we need to have a system that also allows some counseling to try to get people back on their feet. So, yeah. Also using a system that gives money to people that have been in foster care, other people and just people that are disadvantaged. Yeah, that does include reparations. So, smarter education system. So we need to have an education system that is more Montessori, more open, more, and what I mean by that is more Montessori, more open, more hands-on, more, less restrictive on teachers, allows teachers to move higher up and actually go somewhere. It is more, doesn't have all these standardized tests, and a system that is more like Finland's. People say, oh, Finland is great because it doesn't have homework. Finland is great because it has low school hours. Finland is great because of this and that and the other thing. The real reason is Finland is great is because they focus on hands-on stuff. They focus on education they try to give reasons for kids to try to make kids want to learn. That's the thing. They try to make education fun, want something that they want to learn rather than they have to learn it. They make the education want to learn, and if you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. That's the thing with education. You can lead a child to learn, but you can't make them learn. You know, you know, you can teach, but the child has to be willing to absorb that information. And that's the thing we have to fix, because our education system doesn't do that, and that's what we need to fix. A smarter, more just immigration system. So, document undocumented immigrants. That's the thing. That's the first thing. Actually, they have to pay taxes. That's another thing, too. There's not much way of enforcing it, but they do have to pay taxes. Undoing Trump's changes to the H-2A visa. Lifting caps on immigration and making them responsive to changes in, the economy. Responses are responsive to international security, national security, climate impacts, and all this other stuff. So doing that. Undoing the public charge rule, remain in Mexico, and no tolerance policies. Allowing undocumented immigrants to stay in the agriculture sector, but enforcing laws upon them if they move out of the agriculture sector until they have a green card. ICE was split into 3 agencies: the Bureau of Immigrant Detention, Bureau of Immigration Enforcement, and the Homeland Security Investigation Service. The problem is we have an agency that's doing criminal investigations, immigration investigations, and immigrant detention. We shouldn't have the same agency that's investigating terrorists, investigating or arresting children. We shouldn't be even arresting children in the first place, actually. But, all custom agencies need to have more inspector generals. That's very important. Build dedicated housing for immigration detainees that keeps families together, allows children to go to school, gives them adequate medical and other services. Houses should be dormitory, apartment-style housing. Nonprofits will be involved in detention to ensure immigrant rights. And don't treat them as criminals. Treat them as human beings, because you're detaining children. You shouldn't be putting children in prison. No. Raising the ceiling for annual refugee admissions. Admissions to the U.S. to allow for the acceptance of historic numbers of refugees, meeting and eventually exceeding the target of 110,000 refugees set during the final year of the Obama administration. This is minimum standard for the United States to reclaim its historic leadership role in the resettling of refugees. These damaging caps serve only to undermine our international leadership and rob our country of contributions to those who are eager to participate in our economy and society. Ending the Trump administration's Remain in Mexico policy forces asylum seekers from Central American countries to wait adjudication of their case in Mexico rather than the United States, which has historically been the case. This policy has been blocked by a federal judge in April 2019, but is ongoing while appeals are in the process. Order of withdrawal of U.S. military personnel deployed to the U.S.-Mexico border in support of immigration enforcement and canceling the use of non-immigration funding streams currently being used to reprogram to fund the border wall. Reversed the Trump administration's, eliminated the temporary protected status for protections for immigrants, refugees from El Salvador, Haiti, Honduras, Nicaragua, and individuals covered by the Deferred Enforcement Departure Program, launching a regional refugees resettlement initiative that brings together efforts of national governments, NGOs, and international partners such as the UN High Commissioner for Refugees to collectively manage the unique needs of applicants from the Northern Triangle region. Such an approach will help reduce the length of third country stays, help facilitate necessary security and medical checks, and train and support in-country staffers that can identify and refer cases of individuals in greatest need of resettlement. Also create a medical service for the immigration things. That's what Ellis Island was originally for. We need to also do that. Directing the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Homeland Security to expand cooperation with the United Nations High Commissioner of Refugees and the Mexican government to strengthen procedures and institutions for applicants seeking asylum in Mexico. Identifying alternative pathways to bring qualifying refugees to the United States, diminishing the need to transit through the U.S.-Mexico border ports of entry. Ensuring qualified U.S. citizenship and immigration services officials who are critical to social systems supporting legal immigration to the United States and conducting credible fear interviews of asylum seekers. In the fiscal year 2018, 75% of nearly 100,000 individuals seeking asylum passed their credible fear interviews and advanced the next step in the process, demonstrating the scale of need for asylum. Restoring the significantly expanding the scale of caseload management systems for connecting refugees and asylum seekers with infrastructure to ensure effective participation in hearings, including legal aid, resources, and interpreter services. From 2016 to 2017, the Department of Homeland Security piloted the Family Case Management Program and achieved a 99% participation appearance rates for immigration hearings. Despite its success, the Trump administration abandoned the program. Reparations in front of action. I actually don't agree with completely just giving money to, Native Americans, African Americans, whatever. I agree first with issuing a formal apology. That's just basic. Okay? Second, creating a commission to study the impacts of racism and slavery on modern society and to give a report including policy proposals to fix modern problems that those have caused. And that may include, according to that report, that may include um, that may include money and that sort of financial thing and whatever. But I think that just giving them financial resources is just putting a band-aid on a might be putting a band-aid on. We don't know how the extent of this, and we need to study that to figure out what possible. We don't know how much the money to give. We don't know what there could be. We might not even need to give that much money, and we could fix this without that. We don't know the extent of that, and I think we should figure that out first. Because it's basically putting a band-aid on a big giant gash, I think. Education and skill training for careers in the clean energy future, expand funding for STEM, climate and sustainability education, career pathways, student-owned debt forgiveness, education, employer partnerships. Also, civics education. We really lack on that in the U.S., and we really need to work on that. Partnerships throughout K-12 and throughout K-12 and in community colleges, universities, and throughout higher education, with particular emphasis on historically black and colleges and universities, Hispanic serving institutions, and tribal colleges and universities, and other minority serving institutions. Ensuring coordination of federal agency resources to link growth of clean energy sectors to investments in job training, job placement, and career ladders to allow for professional advancement in partnership. In partnership with America's labor unions. Strengthening school-to-work pipelines and greater support for promotion of registered apprenticeships and technical and skilled trade skill certification programs in community technical colleges, establishing dedicated programs for green industrial construction job training and placement under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. Partnership with union experts and federally funded workforce providers to create labor management training and certificate programs that improve worker safety, and expand worker skills, and allow for and protect opportunities for workers to join unions. Linking apprenticeship and pre-apprenticing training commitments to public investments in clean energy infrastructure using apprenticeship and utilization requirements. Supporting clean energy and education and workforce training programs for previously disenfranchised persons to gain access to good-paying jobs in the clean energy economy in partnership with 2-year certificate and granting institutions and community organizations. Establishing a national climate corps, which I think should include a civilian conservation corps, a national climate corps, which should include a civilian conservation corps, a national energy infrastructure corps, Green Careers Network, and this is mostly coming off of NC's plan, but I think this plan isn't up actually anymore. And forgetting one, Global Service Corps, Global Climate Service Corps, creating that and help provide young Americans with service opportunities, building climate solutions at home and abroad, and providing Americans of all ages to access employment, skill training opportunities, including clean energy future. And I also think this should go for people that are getting out of prison. I think this should go for veterans. I think this should go for vulnerable populations. I think this should be oriented towards that, serving more oriented vulnerable populations, younger Americans, that sort of thing. So, how far we needed to go? We're getting to the end, pretty close to the end. Empowering local authority and community action, supporting local action against fossil fuels and pollution from fossil fuels, allowing and strengthening their ability to sue and do climate litigation for impacts they on climate, supporting local jurisdictions enacting bans on new gas infrastructure in buildings and technical assistance and new federal incentives. This will accelerate the transition to zero carbon buildings at scale and the speed required like, for example, the city of Berkeley banned gas infrastructure and new building infrastructure, working with Congress to pass legislation to power local governments to ban the use of federal eminent domain for fossil fuel infrastructure projects or the consumption of specific fossil fuel projects, such as high carbon transportation fuels in their jurisdictions. I think also tribal lands, it's their land, it should be their land. We shouldn't hold it in trust, it should be theirs. If you want more on that, go to see my Native American, Justice for Native Americans one. We should... What was I going to say? They should have exclusive rights to eminent domain on their lands. Exclusive rights to eminent domain on their lands. Exclusive. They should be the only ones that are able to use eminent domain on their lands. We should have no or power to use eminent domain. Partnering with incentivizing local jurisdictions to achieve early retirement of coal-fired power plants, as well. Yeah. Reversing a Trump administration's actions, including under the Clean Water Act, to undermine state and local authority to reject fossil fuel infrastructure projects. Helping communities vulnerable to climate change. Funding frontline and impacted communities to 25 billion. Climate impacted communities grant fund, or climate affected communities also receive 15 billion. Climate justice. We need to give money to the climate, create a climate justice resiliency fund, and fund it by at least 10 billion. And creating a sea level rise retreat fund, and funding that with about 15 billion. And funding more adaptation stuff. I'm going to get more into that in adaptation. And then international aid. So we need to contribute at least 3 billion to the Green Climate Fund. Green Climate Fund, an international fund for climate projects. And then we need to confront China's One Belt, One Road initiative, which has fossil fuel things in it, with our initiative of our own, which we should fund by 200 billion. 200 billion, yeah, I did say that correctly, but we are the largest historical emitter. We are still high up there. We're the second largest emitter today, and we still are one of the highest countries by GDP, by emissions per capita, per population, I mean, unlike China. So, there you go. There's everything. So, I guess I'll see you next time. See ya. Thank you for listening to me rabble on. See ya.